I went exploring with a bunch of friends at the Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Portions of this place are underground. The buildings were left with hospital equipment, beds, books, patient files, literally everything. It's eerie as if a zombie apocalypse occurred and everyone left. It operated from 1864 to 1994. The facility was self-sustaining, i.e. the patients farmed the land and had all resources on campus. The years this was open, a lot of horror stories came out this place. This wasn't the modern-day psychiatric ward, more like a prison where families paid a lot of money to hide their mentally ill, or the state put undesirables. Now, there's an underground network, but was heavily blocked off with chains. However, the main buildings were easily accessible, but the access ways to the underground were blocked off inside as well. Every time we got near one of the underground tunnel systems, we could hear faint music playing. It sounded like a music box. We found a bent wired gate and attempted to file in. The music got louder, and we were all pretty freaked out. We were all promptly arrested before going into the tunnels. There's a lot of speculation about the tunnels still to this day. The new owner said he was afraid of asbestos and was fearing for our safety. He was very grim and agreed to drop charges if we never went back. We obliged happily. Still, I sometimes think of my interactions there, all of the remnants left behind, and get severely creeped out. My friends and I discovered the opening to a tunnel to the sewer system this one summer in middle school, and me and my friends started to go there to smoke and relax away from the public. There was this one spot that we liked that was dry and full of graffiti, so that was our spot, but it was pretty deep in there. One day we noticed the messages on the wall, and we knew it was fresh since we'd never seen it before. We went back again and again without any further incident. One day, me and the other two decided to skip school and going there to chill. We were there for about half an hour, and we had just finished smoking a blunt when we started hearing a faint voice burst into laughter, followed by other voices bursting into laughter. We couldn't tell if it was coming from the entrance or the deeper part of the tunnel. We stayed quiet and started hearing the laughter getting louder and more intense. One of my friends quickly went up to the nearest manhole cover and started pushing up. My other friend went over to help, and they were able to open it. We crawled out of there onto a busy road and ran for our lives to the nearest apartment complex. We never went back after that. I used to live on a military base in Hawaii, and there wasn't much to do there. I don't know how old I was at the time, but maybe around kindergarten. Hawaii didn't require kindergarten at the time, so I wasn't in school yet, I know that at least. Outside our house, there was a covered car park that people in the community used because the houses didn't have garages, and there were various storm drains that were around the car park. I would always play there since it was right outside our house. I wasn't the brightest, but kids can be dim, right? So one day I was playing there, and I thought it would be fun to drop a thing down the storm drain to see how far it went. I had dropped a few rocks and some small sticks and eventually ran out of things to throw in, so I started saying hello to hear my echo. I didn't expect to hear anything other than my own voice. I was surprised when I got a response. A little girl called back to me. I wasn't scared, just confused. I asked her what she was doing down there, and she said that her and her family lived there. I remembered that I kept trying to look closer, but it was so dark you couldn't see the bottom at all. We sat for a while and spoke. I don't remember the whole conversation, but it went on for a while. I vividly remember the last part of it though, because I felt so guilty and hurt. Years later, I still do, even though I'm not entirely sure it happened. She wanted to play with me, and I said I could invite her in for dinner, and she got really excited by that idea. So I ran inside and asked my mum if my friend could come over for dinner. She said no, and she wouldn't let me go back out to tell her. The next day I went out to explain to my friend what had happened, but she wasn't there. I never heard from the little girl in the drain again. I remember crying that day. I blamed my mum for me losing the only friend I had made there. My mum still remembers this thing happening, and just how upset I was because of it. One of the strangest things that ever happened to me was one time when I was first married, around 1987. I took my wife's brother and 3 nephews camping in a cave. It was located on Highway 17 near Waynesville, Missouri, near the Gasconade River that's not too far from Fort Leonard Wood. This is a huge cave and can be seen from the highway. Directly on the other side of the highway was the Ruby-Doo River. It ran along the highway and dumps right there into the Gasconade River. The cave has 2 large openings. The bigger one has a stream running out. The smaller one to the left has a high dry level place where we can all set up camp, big enough for all 5 of us. I can't remember if it was like the first or second night, but it was around 11 o'clock, and we heard what sounded like a semi-truck crossing the Gasconade River Bridge. Then all of a sudden we heard a horrendous crash, like metal bending and trees crashing, and it all grew silent, and we could hear what sounded like pieces of metal still sliding and clinging down the road, and then silence. We all jumped up and ran down there, and we found absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no broken trees, nothing. That was one of the most baffling things I've ever witnessed. I don't remember seeing any lights, but there were quite a few green trees between us and the highway. I tried to do a search on the net to see if any wreck matched what all 5 of us had heard, but I didn't have a clue how to go about it. It must have been some kind of phantom wreck. Around 8 years ago, me and some friends used to spend our weekends spelunking and exploring abandoned places at night. We didn't vandalize or anything, we would just go to take cool pictures and spook each other out. There is an old abandoned rock quarry in our county that loads of teenagers go to throw parties and get drunk. I had never been down there before, but my friends had been there, and they were a few years older than me and had partied down there before. There's a huge hill that you have to park your vehicle at the top of, and cross a gate and walk down the hill to reach the quarry. There's a huge pile of rocks in the middle of the land outside of the actual quarry caves. Lots of old equipment and broken down bulldozers. We ventured into the quarry cave, probably 200 feet in, took some pictures and went back outside. There was standing water inside, and we wanted to be as safe as possible. Not knowing how sturdy the ceiling was or how deep the water was. Coming outside, we kept hearing some really strange animal noises. We live in rural Kentucky, so we see bobcats, mountain lions and bears a lot, but usually deep in the woods, which we weren't in at the time. We usually always carried a machete for tearing weeds down and just general safety. We're standing outside of the quarry cave and we're hearing this weird growling, not like a bear or a dog, not like anything we had ever heard before. We had flashlights and we shined them around, looking on the hill surrounding us, and found these huge greenish reddish eyes staring at us. We all looked at each other like, what the hell is that? Whatever it was standing at least 9 feet tall, but it was standing like a human, not like a bear would. It was massive. We could see fur and its head was massive. Its eyes were a good foot or 2 apart, and we kept standing there looking at it, honestly in shock. We started walking fast up the hill, and it was following us along the hill line. We finally made it to the gate, and when we turned around, it was standing around 30 feet away from us. What we saw wasn't a bear. I've seen black bears around my house plenty of times. We still talk about it to this day. I still believe it was a Bigfoot. My friends think it was too. I've looked up information about the descriptions of other people's sightings, and ours sounds very similar to others, especially the eyes.